Howdy, howdy. So as a disclaimer, my bio is intended to be a disclaimer, right? So I am a lowly contractor by trade. So I am definitely not a developer, but I'm going to be talking about a different type of L2 solution today that I think is key to Litecoin adoption. And so, but again, as a developer, that's not me, right? Like I'm really great at C++, but that was like my GPA, not my language I code, right? Like GUI, I'm great at GUI, but it's like scraping the gum off the bottom of the floorboards of my van because my kids just like spit all over the ground. So like that I'm not the dev guy. That's not me. But I think that we can work together in a pretty important way. So when I saw that they had me talking about Litecoin mining present and future, I was great with it, except the problem with seeing into the future is you have to have vision. Man, I'm 5'5". I can't even see over the steering wheel, right? So, but I'm gonna do what I think we can to help guide adoption in the real world into the future for Litecoin. And I think that what over the next 20 or so minutes, I'd like to talk about is that. How do we get Litecoin adoption? I think that that's really our vision, right? I mean, unless you're, John Kim and you want a Lambo, which is really all our vision too, right? At some level. So there's a part of that vision there, but we're trying to drive adoption. And I think that there's a key to adoption that is typically missed. So here's the problem. How do we drive adoption? T-Pain, right? That's how adoption was driven for me, right? And let me tell you what I'm talking about. So and it's permissionless photo like Litecoin. So when I first saw actually my first ever T-Pain video, it was on an iPhone. My buddy comes over to my house, 2009. He says, "Hey, look, there's this comedy video. It's a poignant satire of the world." And so they give us. He shows me this video of T-Pain and the Lonely Island Boys, and I watched YouTube for the first time ever on a phone. And I'm sitting in an apartment thinking, my life is changed. And then he did something even more revolutionary. Doodle jump, and I did this with my phone to control the way that the game operated, and I realized I would never be bored again. I didn't know 10 years later, nobody can go to the bathroom without their phone, but I didn't realize that I would never be, I realized it and I said I would never be bored again. Why? It wasn't because Apple invented Doodle Jump. Apple didn't invent YouTube. Apple found a way to seamlessly integrate existing real-world things with a device in front of you, and it found the linchpin to connect it was a screen this far from your face. So that's really what created that revolution. Really, in my opinion, the smartphone revolution was, I get it, they weren't the first, but in my opinion, like if you look at the percentages, it's the vast majority of what our country uses. And so I think that we have a problem with Litecoin in terms of adoption, but I think that we can fix that. Obviously, you just heard from the BitPay guys, like Litecoin is number one on BitPay, right? Like we're doing great. We're doing way better than we should be, right? Like, I'm not Donald Trump, right? Like we're not, Kamala Harris isn't coming up here on the stage, but we're still being used more. So we've got a lot of things going right. And I think that one of the things that we're missing is the connection between the real world, right? Like see what you can see, taste, touch, and this matrix world of Litecoin, right? You'll never be able to hold a Litecoin, except Bobby Lee, made some for us and put them on a ballet wallet. But like a real Litecoin, you'll never be able to see and taste and touch it. You can't grab it out of your pocket and be like, "Arr," and see if you can bend the metal on it. It's an intangible, right? And so here's I think for us to connect the real world and the matrix world of Litecoin, right? I think there's a point, right? Like if you've seen the Matrix movies, spoiler alert, it's 25 years old. So if you've seen the Matrix movies, there's the thing that they connect in the back of Neo's head, and it connects the real world with the ships with the Matrix world that is in imagination, but again, the argument's that it's more real than anything we've experienced. And so there's this connecting point, and I believe that mining is the connecting point between the real world and the matrix, right? So if Litecoin's over here and DeFi and devs and C++ and GUI, and I don't even know the languages y'all use, just that stuff. I'm a contractor. I'm over here. Like, how can I incorporate Litecoin mining into my Airbnb? How can I connect Litecoin mining into my business enterprises? And the point of connection between the real world and the matrix world is mining. So if mining is the key to integration, and integration is the key to adoption, then we should all say together, hey, we want to drive adoption. And one of, if not the, in my opinion, it's the primary way that we would drive that adoption is by connecting the real world together. So there's one way of doing it, right? BitPay's doing it. They're connecting these real, tangible merchants with stores, with people that have Litecoin. They want to transact in it. But I believe that mining is or one of the most significant keys to connect those together. So I want to go over a few real world L2s. So normally we talk about a lot of matrixy L2s over here, right? These nebulous concepts, which are good and real, right? It's real code, real things happening, but there's also this real world application over here. So I want to talk about, I'm going to give you a few examples of some L2s. I don't know if we can get this thing to work, maybe. Click, click. Nope. All right. So real world L2s. One would be real estate. So I'm a contractor. I came from the real estate endeavor. I literally had, before I saw the light, I had Ethereum miners running in an Airbnb in the garage, and the Ethereum miners were making more money than the Airbnb was, right? This is a real world connection where we should say, hey, look, how can you take mining and make the existing enterprises more valuable and have a higher ROI, forcing investor funds and adoption in the space. One of them is going to be real estate, and there's so much you can do with real estate. We're going to go over a few different L2s that I think that we should be looking to apply. One of them is real estate. One of them, so for example, you can mess with the cap rates of commercial real estate. So imagine a small warehouse building that you've got where, let's say the valuation's $1 million. We're going to use something divisible by 10 so my contractor brain can handle it, right? So $1 million, and it's throwing off a 10 cap rate, a 10% ROI, net ROI. So you're going to get $100,000 off of it. But now you say, hey, I'm going to put, but you've leveraged into it, meaning debt, so you put 25% down. So you spent $250,000, and now you're making $100,000. That's nice. Let's say you put a $250,000 mine on it too. That's throwing off $250,000 because Litecoin mining is more profitable than any other mining right now. Well, now you've doubled the cap rate of that business if you're throwing that revenue off to the real estate entity. Well, what happens when you double the cap rate of a property? You double the value of a property. You just made a property go from being worth $1 million to being worth $2 million in the real world. And I'm talking at $74 Litecoin. We're not talking when John Kim brings his Lambo. We're talking today, right? So one of the things that you can do is that you can leverage properly into it. You can get debt for real estate to develop the infrastructure for mining. So now you can have a warehouse building that has a mine in the back, a 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt mine in the back, and the leverage from real estate from construction will allow you to construct that. So now you add your ASICs in it. So there's some real world applications that will help drive adoption. These things drive adoption because all of a sudden, if I tell a real estate investor that doesn't care at all about Litecoin, but what if I could double your cap rate, huh? Well, where do I sign up? right? Where do I sign up? And these are the things that we need to be thinking about as we think about how to connect Litecoin adoption to the real world. Another thing is like you can mess with maximizing your risk reward. Think about this way: like if you buy some Litecoin, I believe that Litecoin is one of the best just buy and hold strategies. Like you buy it, you hold it, you sit it, you leave it alone for 20 years and come back. I'm not smart enough to know when the top is or when the bottom is. I'm going to buy it and hold. That's the exit plan, right? The exit plan is Litecoin. So you can mess with the risk reward ratios by putting copper backing, right? Wires, transformers. That's a hard asset, commodity backed thing that you can then use to mine Litecoin. So those are some real estate things. Imagine this. Imagine that scenario that we just laid out. And a real estate investor, now he's doubled his cap rate. He's taken out a little bit more leverage from his property because now it's worth $2 million and not $1 million. And he throws it into some ASIC miners. And now he's got an extra 1,500 Litecoin a month to spend. He's going to be getting with all his real estate buddies saying, how do I spend this magic internet money, right? I want to spend my magic internet money. I got 1,500 of these little jokers running around a month. How do I spend them? And you don't think that that's going to drive adoption? I think that that is the key for driving adoption. You take the largest asset class on the planet, which is real estate. It's like in the quadrillions of dollars. And all of a sudden, the people that have the highest cap rate are all tangled up in Litecoin mining. That's how you drive adoption. That's how you drive banks saying, no, we only want, banks should be saying, we only want Litecoin mines in the back of all of our commercial real estate. All of our office warehouse space, the back should have a 1/4 megawatt or something like that. Because how else can you compete in the world if you're not matching that same cap rate? So I think that real estate's one of them. Another thing, I think we need to be talking to our CPAs, right? I had the privilege of marrying mine. I'd say on the one hand, it's the cheapest CPA. On the other, it's definitely the most expensive, right? I don't have to pay when I go to my accountant's office, but I have to pay every time I take out the trash, right? So like but I think that we should be talking about tax advantages in the space. We need to be thinking about Litecoin as business people, right? We are business people here. We're here because we want to learn about an ecosystem of business, and we have to be terms of tax. So for example, a large part of why I got into mining is we had a construction business, and I said, I would like our next business to have tax advantages. So if we make money over here, I can lose money over there, and Uncle Sam doesn't steal. It's beautiful, legally legitimate, stopping the robbery right where it stops, right where it starts. And so we got into it because we said, wait, I can bonus depreciate 100% of an ASIC the moment I buy it. Like there are tax advantages to doing this type of stuff that we need to be exploring. Like if you're partnering with real estate, you can do a cost segregation analysis and stop all the taxes that you would otherwise have to pay and write a large part of that building off. All that copper, the transformers, the racks, all that can be a write-off. So there are tax strategies. I'm not giving tax advice. I don't know if I need a disclaimer or something. Don't talk to your CPA, right? So, but these are things that are legitimate legal structures for you to use to maximize the adoption of Litecoin. What happens when all of your CPAs find out, wait a second, so you mean to tell me that you've got a high ROI business that you started as an LLC that you're running from the back of your house, and it's got 4 computers, because that's what your home electric panel can handle, and you wrote off all of your profits from this year and your electric bill? You don't think that they're going to tell their friends? We need to drive adoption in the real estate space. We need to drive adoption in the CPA space, in the tax space. We need to drive it in businesses. So there are so many write-offs that you can employ that you can't employ with just buying and holding Litecoin. Pick a wiring harness or a PDU or a power cables and network cables and electric bills and all these things that you can write off and you can partner them together. I have some buddies that they have a handful of different warehouse spaces and businesses, and on each one they put a mine in them. We've helped them, say, hey, look, we've, make those connections so it could happen. And they put Litecoin mines at all of their warehouse spaces, and so now all of their electrics are write-off, and all of the profits, they just buy all the profits from their business. If it's a business they don't need the profits from, they increase their hash rate. I think that that's the ticket. That's the key, is we've got to connect real world investors, real world people that have the funds and the means and that have been playing the game for a long time. We have to connect them with this new matrix technology, with this new technology where they say, well, I kind of get it. Like, I understand gold and silver bullion. Why is Litecoin, Bitcoin, why are those better and probably not Ethereum, right? So like, what's the difference? Why is that the case? And so I think that we have to drive that adoption through businesses, through CPAs, through tax strategies, through real estate endeavors, through putting a Ethereum Classic from the last guy, right? So putting an Ethereum Classic mine if you have to, right? But like, just trade it for Litecoin. But so the idea of being able to put a hard asset and increase your ROI in the real world is huge for driving adoption. Adoption is going to be driven from integration. We have to integrate the real world with the digital world. Another example, I think that and we'll see this, lots of you guys have seen lots of these things, the household appliances. People that are literally right now making their pool heaters, right? Coin Heated on YouTube. He's heating his pool with miners, right? And there's no reason that, and all of those miners should be Litecoin miners. And we'll get into that in a second, but Litecoin just is flat more profitable to mine. Which makes it far more resilient to your residential electric price. Oh, my electric price at my house is 11 cents. Okay, you can't mine Bitcoin, but you sure can mine Litecoin. You heat your pool with Litecoin. Heat your spa with Litecoin. Get a water heater for your Litecoin mine, and now you're saving energy, but you're making it. Another thing that I think that we could do is even on international endeavors, you could take like old Litecoin miners, say an L3 that might not be profitable here in the States, but over there, either they have free or very reduced electric prices in many of these countries, or they're needing a space heater, and they're going to spend the money on the space heater anyway. At least have it partially subsidized with old Litecoin miners. There's a whole business model you could have from repurposing old L3 pluses and treating them as space heaters for developing markets. I mean, these are some really basic business ideas that I'm saying, go do it, right? Let's incorporate the matrix and the real world so that we can drive adoption. And I think that I'd like to think that most of us in here are a little bit idealist, right? We want to drive adoption because it's permissionless and because it's unconfiscatable and it's open source and you can see what's going on and it's more transparent in transactions. But if we want that, if we really want that, if we want to fight against the CBDC, we have to drive it in the regular market. And the only way you get to drive it in the regular market is by having an adoption that integrates the physical world and the digital world. So, how can I mine? It doesn't have to be fancy. This guy's named Jerry. I carved him into the side of my house about a half a decade ago, and he was cooling 36 L3 pluses. And it was really ugly. My wife loved it. She just loved it. She walked in my house one day and she goes, "Is that a huge hole in the side of the outside of my house?" I go, "Don't worry, baby, I'm gonna fix it." And I didn't, but for a year or two, I didn't, But so this is Jerry. It doesn't have to be fancy. When somebody, it's Jerry. I knew a guy with a lot of hot air once, and so we named it in his honor. So, yeah, true story. So I think that we should, when somebody comes up to me and says, I want to buy my first L9. I had a conversation last night with a guy who was like, "I want to buy my first L9. I was like, yes, call me, text me, let me know how I can help you. We need to do that so we can drive people into the space. Imagine this guy's neighbors coming over and saying, "What kind of space heater you got there?" He's like, "Don't worry, I'm making a Litecoin." Well, what the heck is a Litecoin, right? So we have to drive adoption. We have to drive familiarity, and that's going to happen in that connecting point from the real world to the digital world. That connecting point is mining. So Litecoin mining only, right? I have mined other coins. I know we've all sinned and fallen short, but how can I mine, right? You can use it yourself. So we can mine I would say that the way I would recommend it is using your current arena. You can see from my last picture, I had somebody else do the carpentry, right? You can see that I had somebody else help us with the carpentry. But I was a carpenter, right? Like I did carpentry work when I was a kid and when I was younger growing up. And so we use what skills you have and what abilities you have to be able to drive that for future adoption. That's how you can do it. Be creative. I just gave you like 15 ideas. Come up with 3,000 more. There's no reason that everybody in this room can't have 20 ideas of how you can connect this wonderful little device that makes Litecoin, metaphorically, it makes Litecoin out of electricity. And it makes heat. Well, what do you need heat for? Well, pick 1,000 things that we need heat for and use those, right? So be creative with it. And then go open source, right? I'm not here giving you ideas so I can patent them. I'm not going to give you those ideas, right? I'm going to give you ideas that I want you to go and take, right? Go take these and use these and buy an L7. Go even on eBay. Go get on eBay, buy a used L7 and figure out what it's like, right? If you really like this Litecoin thing, I think that everybody should be involved in mining. I'm a huge fan of it. And so Litecoin mining only. Again, I touched on it briefly a minute ago. Obviously, lots of it is because of this, right? Like there's a place for Bitcoin mining and Litecoin miners, but I don't think I could ever go back to mining Ethereum. I'm not, no judgment. I just, after the merge, I said, I didn't realize it wasn't really decentralized. And then it actually drove me to love Litecoin. I got into the tokenomics instead of the US dollar economics. And I said, Litecoin is it. And so, I think that Litecoin only is the key because it's low electric rate. You can do it. You can be profitable at 12, 14, 18 cents even. You can be profitable mining Litecoin at low rates. It's fast. It's easy to acquire. You can literally get on eBay and find something to be able to mine with, even if it's an L3 Plus, just to get your feet wet. You can get an L3 Plus for a couple $100 on eBay. So find a way to get involved in the connecting point, because I believe that if Litecoin's a revolution, Litecoin, I do, with all my heart, I believe that Litecoin is actively and will ultimately even more change the world. So we're in this revolutionary space of the matrix, and if we really want to drive that adoption, I think we have to be in tangible spaces. We have to be in a place where we're connecting businesses, we're connecting tax strategies and tax structures, and we're connecting real live innovation, appliances, pick a thing in the real world that helps connect other existing industries, renewable energies. I think we even had that up there. Renewable energies and those sorts of endeavors. Oil and gas. Like if you're in an industry already, go where you are and incorporate Litecoin in the real world. You'll never be able to hold a real Litecoin, but you can hold an ASIC computer. And that, I think, is going to be the way to drive it. So I think that integration is the key to adoption. And I think that the key to integration is ASIC mining. So if you have any questions, look, there's about 2 topics on the plan I could talk for hours on, Litecoin and Jesus, but I'm only up here for Litecoin right now. So if you want to reach out to me, give me a holler. Look, that's my contact. Take a screenshot. I've got cards out at a booth out there. Look, I'm a firm believer that Litecoin mining is the future. We have a Litecoin mining fund. I believe it's the only investment I can think of that's better than Litecoin, but I'm super partial, right? So but get involved in somehow. If I can help you set up a home mine, call me, text me. We'll set up a time. I'm in China, great, I'm up at 2 a.m. I'm not up necessarily at 9 a.m., but I am, working at 2 a.m. usually. So text me and we'll set up a time, and if there's a way I can help you, if there's a way that you want to brainstorm, real estate endeavors. Look, we've got real estate endeavors and tangled up with Bitcoin and Litecoin mining on it. And I just really believe that this is the future. So thank you guys for your time, and look forward to hearing from y'all.